Committee to order. It's 11:16. I believe we have all of our members from the House that are present, including our alternate. Do we have to motion to roll call or?
No. Roll call. No motion. Just go down. Go to order and then
Okay.
roll call.
Okay, with that, Ms. Cliff, can you call the roll for the House side? Thank you.
Representative John Paul P. Sablon,
Mr. Gap.
Representative Blas Jonathan B.J. T. Apto,
Present.
Representative Ralph N. Numo,
Present.
Representative Marissa R. Flores.
Present.
Chairman, we have 3 members present and 1 alternate member present.
Thank you, Ms. Claire. I'll now yield to the chair for the Senate side. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Yumo. At this time, I recognize our LA to take roll for the House or the Senate.
Senator Jude U. Hoffschneider. Senator Carl R. King Neighbors.
Here.
Senator Karina L. Magosna.
Geiger.
Senator Donald M. Manglona.
Present.
Mr. Chairman, all Senate conferees are present.
Thank you, Jolyn. With all members present, that constitutes a quorum for the Senate conferees. I yield back.
Thank you, Chairman. May I get a motion to adopt today's agenda? Thank you. It's been seconded. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. Next further business, public comment. Is there anyone in the public that would like to comment? Being there's none, I will move next to the order of business, adoption of Budget Conference Committee ground rules. I believe every member has been given the copy that was proposed by the House. And with that, we'll take a short recess and
Does the Senate have a version?
yeah, as the Senate has their own version or?
Chairman, our version is the same as what was previously shared with the committee. As of I believe this is as of 3 p.m. or sorry, 9 a.m. yesterday,
Okay.
whatever that version was.
Okay.
Yes.
There is no changes. Is there any comments with regards to the rules?
We did see one particular change, however, and that's on item 3. Based on what was shared with the Senate and what we are seeing this morning, there seems to be a change with the voting members or the majority of the members versus 2 members from the House and 2 from the Senate.
Is the Senate opposing the changes?
Yes, we agreed to what was initially proposed yesterday.
Is there another comment? None. Let me recognize Representative Sablon.
Thank you, Chair. And my apologies because I didn't see the Senate version on Rule 3, Item A. But I think because most of the conferees here, we went through weekly meetings with the administration and OMB. I think we just need to simplify the votes and not make it harder for this conferee to arrive to a solution. Putting the issue at hand, the financial crisis and the need to revise this budget is really an urgency right now. But I am in support of this version here. And my apologies, I haven't seen the version of the Senate versions on the rules. Thank you.
Thank you, Rep. Sablon. Is there any Senator?
Thank you, Chair. With all due respect, JP, this isn't the Senate version. It was proposed by the House. It was the rules that we've used in the past, I believe, two budget conference committees. And I understand that all three members in your committee are members of the fiscal response team as well as the Senate. However, unlike the Senate, all members in your conference committee consist of members from the third senatorial district without any representation in the first or second, unlike the Senate where we have one representative for each district. And so I think we should revert back to what was shared with the Senate from the House side, and this was the rules that were used in the past, at least from my understanding, the past two fiscal years. Thank you.
Any other comment?
And so, sorry, Mr. Chairman, and so if this is up for discussion, then I'd like to propose an amendment to what was shared this morning then, and that's to revert back to the original proposal that all motions or votes shall be by a majority, 50% plus one of the official members, provided that 4 votes shall be 2 Senate members and 2 House members. In the event of a tie or a failure to garner the required 4 of 6 votes, the vote or motion shall fail. No member of the conference committee may vote twice regardless of status. A member who abstains shall count towards the 6-member total. So move.
Second.
Let me take a short recess. So we're back. I believe there is a motion by Senator Manglonia uh, to amend the rules, and it has been seconded. Any more discussion? Being there's none. Ready? All those in favor, say aye. All those opposed, say nay. Nay. Okay. Division. Please go to roll.
Representative John Paul P. Sablon.
Oh, he-
Representative Blas Jonathan BJT Atto.
No.
Representative Ralph N. Newmo.
No.
Chairman, all three members voted no.
Thank you, Claire. Senator.
Thank you. I recognize Jolin to take roll for the Senate.
Senator King Neighbors,
Yes.
Senator Magofnia,
Yes.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, all three Senate conferees voted yes.
Thank you, Jolin. I yield back to the chair.
Thank you, Chairman. Being a tie, the motion doesn't pass. Short recess. Hold on.
Before
Hold
we
on.
go into that short recess, can we just address the other
There has been a motion to add the two councils in case one or the other is not present. Is there any objection to that?
Ready.
Okay. Has it been seconded? Okay, thank you. Is there all those in favor say aye?
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. Please amend the rules, and we'll take a short recess. Thank you. Okay, we are back. Let me recognize Representative Sablan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And in the spirit of moving forward with this Comfrey uh, committee, I would like to now make a motion that we vote on the provisions under the proposed rule under item 3, motions and voting, under line item A, that we vote on these provisions as stated. All motions or votes shall be by a majority of 50% plus one of the official members, provided that 4 votes shall be 2 Senate members and 2 House members. In the event of a tie or a failure to garner the required 4 of 6 votes, the vote or motion shall fail. No member of the Comfrey Committee may vote twice regardless of status. A member who abstains shall count towards the 6-member total. So move.
Thank you. There has been a motion made by Representative Sablan. It has been seconded. All those in favor, let's say aye. All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. Motion carries. The so let's take a short recess so we can finalize the rules and get it signed by both houses. Thank you. Everyone. I'll now recognize Representative Sablon for the motion to adopt.
Thank you. At this time, Mr. Chairman, I move that we adopt the ground rules that will govern this proceeding moving forward that we have all signed already. So move.
There has been a motion by Rep. Sablon and has been seconded. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The ground rules now is adopted. Um, with moving on to new business, I will recognize the chairman of the Senate.
Thank you, Chair. With that, if the members have no objections, can we call up Secretary of Finance? I had um, extended the invitation to the secretary to brief the committee on basically ARPA funds specifically designated for the municipalities. And we would like for the secretary to mention or just to provide some clarity in regards to how Tinian is receiving their funds and what report does her office receive in regards to what goes into the municipality. I know Tinian's situation is different in the sense that they've opted to receive their ARPA funds directly and not pass through the central government. And so, just to provide clarity to the members, as well as answer questions that members may have in regards to ARPA balances for the municipalities. But I do want to make clear to the public tuning in and just for the record that while the administration has a position that we do not have ARPA funds for operations, the ARPA funds that we are discussing today are the funds provided directly to the municipalities, which the central government does not have access to, if there are still funds available. And so, with that, I would like to recognize the secretary and basically, secretary, if you can just provide clarity in regards to the whole ARPA funds for Tinian and how that differs from Rhoda and Saipan, as well as
Mr. Chair, sorry, Vice President, I think we should dissolve to committee of the whole first before
Yes.
we.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry.
And so with in addition, just the explanation of 602 and 603. And so with that, Chair, I'd like to request that we move into committee of the whole.
There has been a motion offered by Senator Manglonia to dissolve to the committee as a whole and has been seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. Senator, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. And so with that, I would like to turn the floor over to the Secretary.
Thank you. Good morning. I understand there's a question around the ARPA 603, Section 603 funding that is allocated directly to the municipalities, specifically that to Tinian. And so the information that we have available is that Tinian was allocated $926,193. And that information is available on usaspending.com, which is where we verified the information. And that 463,000 of that amount has been outlaid. We assume that means it has been wired to the municipality directly. I am confirming that the Department of Finance did not receive these funds. These are direct payments to the municipality. The reporting requirements are by U.S. Treasury, and so the municipality of Tinian provides those reports to the U.S. Treasury portal, not to the Department of Finance. In addition, I'd like to add that the fiscal response team has also discovered that there were previous discussions between the municipality of Tinian and the former administration regarding anticipation of 604 ARPA funding, which is the Capital Projects Fund, CPF funding of $14 million to the CNMI. And so in anticipation of those funds, $3 million was advanced directly to Tinian. However, in meeting with U.S. Treasury, 604 ARPA funds are specifically for broadband projects. And in speaking with the Tinian mayor yesterday, this was not their understanding of the use of the 3.6 million that was provided to Tinian. And so in light of that information, the 3 million that has been advanced to Tinian is available for operations as 602 ARPA funding. I'm available for open for any questions regarding that.
Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Secretary. And so, what was that 1 million? What about 602 funding for the municipality? Do you have any information on that? And what is the balance for? Tinian is under the impression that they were awarded 1 where's this?
The
1.8 million.
for the
602. Oh, sorry, 6.2 million.
Yeah.
Do you have any information on 602 for Tinian?
I did not prepare the fund status for 602. I understood that this purpose for today was about 603, but we can get the information that you need for, is it specifically to a certain office for mayor? So the entire municipality.
But just on, would you happen to know if there's any funds in that 602 for Tinian? Is that passing through the central government as opposed to the direct?
Yes, so 602 funds are controlled by the central government. So that is what is within the governor's expenditure authority, is the 602 funds, which were provided to both municipalities. Yeah. And so currently, without a revised budget, agencies are using their ARPA accounts, right, for operations and 20% of personnel. And so because the budget controls are on, they are limited to the allocation, the budget allocation that they have. But I can get more information on that for you.
Thank you. And so again, for the record, whatever you can see or whatever is reported on the U.S. Treasury website is all the information you would have on what has been given to Tinian.
For 603 funding,
Correct.
yes, that's
And
correct.
you wouldn't have any information as to what the issue is in regards to pending allotments that are owed to Tinian?
For the 603 funding,
Yes.
I believe Treasury is wiring them in tranches, similar to the 602. And because the information on their Treasury website says that only 463,000 has been outlaid, we are assuming that there's a second tranche coming in for Tinian to complete their allocation of 926,000.
And has Saipan and Rhoda received that second tranche?
Yes,
Is there a third tranche or it's just the second?
I believe that's two tranches, and we
tranches.
received the funding for Mayor of Saipan, correct?
Okay. And how much do you have Rhoda's 603 with you right now?
Information on
Yeah.
Rhoda, yes.
How much was given to Rhoda?
So Rhoda was allocated $746,330.
And when was the second tranche remitted?
I don't know the exact date, but the funds have been received since Rhoda opted to use the central government as the receiving treasury for those funds.
Okay, but was it this year or last year?
I'd have to confirm that, yeah.
Well, I recognize Senator Carl.
Thank you. Can I just clarify, so the 3.6 that was booked under capital improvement is gonna be now under 602, not 3B2. So only in 602.
the information that I have from Munis
Mhm.
is that the 3 million that was allocated with a budget allocation to Tinian was under 603.
Okay,
And so it seems to me now that there must have been a misunderstanding in the former administration and former SOF's office
uh,
of what the source of funding, the advance and the understanding in place, because the 3 million was under a 603 account. However, we can correct that with the current understanding that we have with information from the Tinian mayor that it was in fact an advance for 604 and not 603. So that can be corrected. So does that answer your question?
I just want to clarify what we're now officially booking it under. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Carl. I recognize Vice Chair Senator Magosca.
Thank you, Chairman, and welcome, Secretary of Finance. Just quick clarification. So you had stated earlier that the Department of Finance verified and confirmed the numbers through U.S. Treasury, correct? The numbers.
Yes, this is available on usaspending.com.
Right.
Mhm.
And my question is, when was the last time the CNMI uploaded and submitted current information to reflect actuals?
I can get back to you on the actual date for that. I believe it's we report 2 times a year, so I can get that date for you.
Okay, and that would be my concern, right? Because if we are not current with the uploading of the expenditures and obligations, that number could indeed be understated. And so I just, can you look into that and make sure that we are current with the submission of all the required expenditures to be reported, and just get a true figure of what those numbers should be. Yes.
And just to clarify, what we upload to Treasury's portal is for the 602 ARPA expenditures. And what I was referring to earlier for the USA spending was what we received for the 603 funding.
Okay, great. Thank you for the clarification.
Thank you, Secretary. At this time, Chair, the Senate yields.
Thank you, Senator and Chairman. Let me recognize Rep. Atal.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Vice President, for making the motion and uh, including the Secretary of Finance in this conversation. Thank you, Secretary, for joining us, and to your team for being with us this morning. But the 3 million that you had mentioned that was allocated to Tinian, that's already been switched from broadband and all that stuff for its operational costs for the island of Tinian?
Again, I don't know the details of the understanding and the agreement for the advance transfer. What I can say is that the 3 million cash is 602 cash. And it was with the understanding that when the 604 money comes in for broadband infrastructure, that potentially that would be reimbursed from what was allocated to Tinian. And now with our current understanding, 604 is specific to broadband infrastructure projects related to health, education, and enabling work. And that is not what the mayor understood the 3 million was advanced for. And so at this point, what we can consider the 3 million is, since it is 602 ARPA funding, it can be available for operations.
Okay, and so just to go back to the fiscal team, that $3 million that you're mentioning regarding to Tinian is the $3 million over allocation and the ARPA funds. Is that the same 3 million, or is that a different 3 million?
I believe it's the same 3 million. It's just we couldn't get an understanding. It seemed to have a confusion with the mayor's office because our Munis accounts show that it's booked under a 603 account, and they were mentioning 604. However, the cash was from 602. And so now that we align with what was their understanding of the advance and what was booked on the account, now we can say we have an understanding now.
Okay, so that's clear that that can be used for operational costs. We'll be able to address their financial issues that obviously everybody's going to be facing pretty soon, as soon as we pass this budget, right? Is that correct?
Correct,
Okay.
because that is 602 cash. It should be corrected in the system that it was 602 funding and that expenses against those funds were for operations.
Okay, inclusive of its personnel.
Yes.
Okay. And I guess going back to what Senator Karina had mentioned, rather than actually submitting it back, we need to go back to our spending plan and address that first before we even start submitting accurate numbers, because it's at the end of the day, it's not going to match, right? We've overexpended in other areas of ARPA, so we need to go back to the spending plan. Failure to do that, we might actually be liable for all the monies sent to the CNMI. Okay, so just to be clear, Mr. Chairman and Vice President, that there's that $3 million for the second senatorial district that's outside of this realm right now. And I know that we haven't even touched the budget yet. We're getting some clarifications from the Secretary of Finance. The one question that I asked the Secretary of Finance, which was in the Senate version, there's an understanding of the over allocation of funds that were distributed to the various entities that within the Senate version. Were there any submissions from the Department of Finance or OMB to the Senate outside of the budget submission that states that there was a over allocation of funds? None, other than the shortage for DPS, fire, road, and Tinian, correct?
Yeah, that's all I'm aware of.
Okay. Okay. Mr. Chairman, I guess I yield for now, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Rep. Rep Sablan.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Madam Secretary. Just a simple question. You mentioned 604 is broadband, 602 is personal. What is 603? What are the uses for 603?
So 603 ARPA funding is funding available directly to the municipalities based on their spending plan.
So,
And the uses of that are almost exactly the same as 602 for prevention of COVID-19 spread and operations due to reduction in revenue.
thank you for that clarification. I yield, Chairman.
Thank you, Rep Sablan. Any other questions, concern? Okay. I'll yield to the Vice President.
Thank you. Would you happen? So how did the transfer go for the 602 monies now? Did that go directly as a lump sum to the municipality, or is that still with the secretary, your office, and it's just
Yeah,
obligated?
I believe, yes. I believe the accounts for 602 ARPA are created in Munis, and we control the payments of those ARPA expenditures under 602.
Okay, and does the municipality still have full access to the 602?
So there are accounts that are established. If they have remaining budget, they have access to that right now.
Thank you. If I may, Chair, I'd like to recognize our fiscal analyst.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Ms. Acting Secretary of Finance, Tracy. Tracy, you stated that there is no over allocation based on the allocation that the governor submitted to the legislature on the calculation for the additional 8 hours for each activity in the government. Is that true?
I would have to be provided that information to see
Well,
what that would look like.
let me clarify this. The exercise that the governor did in submitting the revised proposal to the legislature to come up with the 72 hours and putting all the employees on austerity was based on a formula that for the first 5 months in FY 2023, it would be amortized on a straight line basis based on the original enacted personal allocation. And then for the last 7 months, would be based on 72 hours. So in other words, for the first 5 months, it will be amortized throughout the 12 months period. And then for the last 7 months, it would take only 10% of the actual allocation, 100% allocation, and divide that by 12. Then you multiply that by 7. That will give you the allocation specifically for those 7 months remaining in the fiscal year. And you take that allocation and you add with the enacted allocation, that will give us the true picture for the allocation for the fiscal year 2023. That's the formula that you guys came up, and that's how we came up with the determination of the over allocation, because the governor has already declared that, the austerity would take place on April 24. And so we decided that, when your allocation came in, it was calculated back on March 1st. And now it's about over a month and a half later that the government declared for the austerity to take in effect, on April 24th. So there's a lapse there of approximately 1.5 months. So that's the over allocation that we came up with. And we quantified that to approximately 700 some thousand dollars. And that's the reason why that allocation that we determined, based on the recommendation from the Senate Committee Affairs, we decided to allocate it to the programs that needed it the most. And that's my justification there, Mr. Secretary. Thank you.
So with what Dave has mentioned, and if you need further clarification, please let me know. Would it be safe to use that over allocation of 1.5 months from what was supposed to have been proposed from March 1st, now moved to April 24th? And so that gap there, the lapse, is what we're using to reallocate to other entities. Is that safe to use?
I mean, what your fiscal analyst mentioned, that makes logical sense to me. It's a matter of timing and the preparation of the budget and the passage of the budget. And so how you allocate those funds, to me, is okay, as long as you meet the revenue projection bottom line that we had provided. And so I yield to the legislature to, do that.
Yeah, thank you. I know you have until the end of the month to submit second quarters, but have you looked at the figure for second quarter yet in regards to whether we've exceeded the projections?
Yes, we are closely monitoring the revenue projections for second quarter, and we are preparing the report for the governor.
Okay, thank you. At this time, if any of the Senate members have anything else, if none, I yield back.
Thank you, Chair. Let me recognize Rep. Atal.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Madam Secretary, I was just wondering, since the date that the administration had said that we would need to cut off ARPA, and we all know that ARPA is paying 20% of the salaries of the employees of the central government. And in addition to that, there was over 500 employees that were 100% ARPA funded. So from that date forward, what was paying the 20% and what was paying the 100% of the ARPA funded employees that ended in March 27?
So I'd like to clarify that the ARPA funded employees were being paid by ARPA funds, and the necessity of a revised budget is because of the projection of the depletion of ARPA funds. And so we continue to pay with what little remaining ARPA funds we have for ARPA funded employees, ARPA expenses for the operations, since it's not provided in the general fund budget. And so I hope that clarifies.
So the 20% of the salaries were being paid by ARPA funds? Okay, so I guess because the question was to total ARPA, right? I mean, I believe this body was the one that got hit the hardest instantly because we were releasing staff. But yet the administration continues to spend the ARPA money? I guess that's the question.
Yes, there are still, as we speak, without a revised budget, the 20% must be covered by ARPA for the employees, and that was what was being projected. That is the reason for the cost containment and for the release of about 500 personnel that were affected by ARPA.
Okay, that's kind of interesting because in the fiscal response meetings, the understanding is to strip the ARPA spending, right? And does the administration have a proposal already to U.S. Department of Treasury in regards to the spending plan? Because if they don't, then we're obviously just going backwards right now.
Well, we do have a scheduled meeting with U.S. Treasury next week to discuss our current situation with the spending plan and the actual expenditures. And so we'll know more information when we meet with them.
Okay, so from the collections from October, I guess from the first quarter to date, we should then have an excess amount of money on the collections on the general fund since we've been using ARPA. What's that amount right now?
For the actual collections in Q1 that were used in formulating the revenue projections, we had, I'll just give you the, it was forecasted to be 23 million and we collected 27. So there was an excess there, which was the basis for the revenue projections.
So the 23 or $27 million within the first quarter, is that?
Yes, correct.
Okay, so within the first quarter, less 20% of that should have been the savings, correct? Because ARPA was covering the 20%.
Well-
And there's nothing that was being paid for operations. It was ARPA 100% operations. So what's the number to that? What's the
I can
20%?
just tell you that what we collected in the first quarter for general fund collections was used for general fund payments. And with an outstanding deficit coming out of FY 2022, which was reported in the annual report as 21 million, really the cash flow situation here, still in the middle of a pandemic, we are still addressing those obligations. So the government continues to hold obligations beyond the fiscal year, even when it closes. So again, first quarter was from October to December. And so the new incoming administration, this is what we have found.
And so then, is it fair to say that the submission by the administration and the exercise that was done by the legislature is accurate with the numbers that are being presented today?
Yes, the information that we have is the current information that we have found through the weekly meetings and through analysis of the collection. So we needed a basis for our revenue projections for the revised budget, and the first quarter actual was what we used as our basis.
Okay, so the over allocation that the Senate's version has is accurate, is what you're saying?
The over allocation that your analyst is talking about is simply within the proposed budget, not the actual. So that's two separate funds that we're talking about.
But we would assume that we'd get the real fund numbers, right? The real numbers from your end to our end to be able to deliberate on this budget so that we can present it to the administration for final review and approval, correct? Okay. I'm just saying, because if we're not on the same planet, then we're gonna go in different places all over, because we're depending on the numbers that's being submitted by the administration to address the budget, correct?
Yes, I understand
Okay.
that.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield my time.
Thank you, Rep. Atto. Rep. Sablan.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. So, Madam Secretary, so we have been having meetings weekly and with the fiscal response team. And it was the notion in the very, very beginning that there's normal ARPA. But you're saying now that those that were under 100% and to include the 20% were still being paid by ARPA. So can you elaborate more and clarify that?
So at the current levels, right, at 80 hours, there must be funds to pay that payroll, right? And so the ARPA cash that is remaining, again, through the findings of the fiscal response team, does not match the expenditures that are in the munis system. And so the work continues to reconcile those funds, and it will take longer than, a couple weeks to really find out what happened to those funds. Where did it go? Obviously, with what happened with the 603, there's a lot of misunderstanding, misinformation. And so we can only work with the information that we have. And so looking at the reports that we put together with the ARPA spending plan versus what was actually expended in the system versus the cash balance, there's a significant difference, right, in unidentified expenditures, unrecorded expenditures. So when we take all those factors into consideration, we have to figure out a way to move forward. And the best way to move forward is to restrict the ARPA spending so that we can conduct the reconciliation. And so that is why we moved into immediate cost containment, release of ARPA employees, because if you look at the system and look at the budget available, there should be a lot of money remaining. However, that's not the situation. And so we have to look at also the cash remaining, the outstanding obligations, which continue to mount without a revised budget. And it's exceeding $17 million. And we are holding on to payment of obligations because we want to reconcile and know how to move forward. And so the best way to move forward is to revise the budget, and so that we can adjust the expenditures. Until then, we have to use what little remaining cash we have to keep the government going in full operations, because there are no operational funds in the general fund budget. And so that's as much information as I know that has been shared in our weekly meetings. The reports that you have is the reports that I have we have been using. It is on Schedule B that has been provided, which is the cash balance. And so I'm not sure if there was a misunderstanding, but I can continue to explain the findings that we have. But until a revised budget is passed, we will continue to deplete the ARPA funds, which will not last to September. And that is why we're here today, is to pass a revised budget, because we don't want to all of a sudden have a payless payday because we have completely zeroed out. And so we are doing the responsible thing by providing a plan on how to move forward without the ARPA cash. And in the meantime, we have to continue the reconciliation and potentially forensic audit of the ARPA cash. But again, these are just moving targets. These are moving goals. And we have been working together the past couple months to figure out a way forward. And that's just where we're at today. So again, Q2 has just completed, and we are doing our report to monitor the revenue tracking, but the data we have is as good as it gets. And I'm here to help how to get this budget forward.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Apparently, there's no dispute that there's a need for a revised budget. That's why we are here. And we're trying to conclude on a compromise, whatever it is, that we must amend our fiscal budget. But I guess my question will be that during that duration, when the administration have gave notice, 60-day notice for this 100% fully paid under ARPA employees, you don't necessarily agree that during the duration of the 60-day notice that general funds were used to subsidize this? It's you. Are you saying that it was fully funded all the way to I think March 27 was the last day of the 60-day notice? Can you elaborate more on that?
Yes. In our fiscal response meetings in the Schedule B, there's a cash reconciliation that has been provided with the available cash that we are using as of December 31st to help us project forward as to how long that cash will last. And at current levels, with the bloated amount of FTEs and ARPA paid employees, that cash would fully be depleted in a matter of 10 pay periods. And so to avoid that situation, we had to take immediate action to start cutting out ARPA expenses. Hence our decision to start restricting ARPA expenditures.
Thank you, Chair. You.
Thank you, Rep. Sablan. Rep. Patel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you again, Secretary. We'll go back and just concentrate on the budget itself. So just the $3 million is available for the second senatorial district to move forward, correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Rep. Patel. Is there any other? Let me yield to your chair.
Thank you, Chair. I recognize Senator Magofnia.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Secretary, for the clarification. So I'm trying to follow, okay, based on everything that has been said, what's been stated on the record, and you clearly just stated on the record that there is still ARPA funds left. But to my understanding, from the very beginning, when we started the fiscal team, I was under the impression that we just didn't have any ARPA, hence the need to, implement the cost containment measures, to release the ARPA funded employees. And I do see where Rep. JP Sablan was going. So you're confidently sitting there and saying that none of the general funds was used to supplement or subsidize any ARPA expenditures?
Yes, so general fund collections have been used for general fund obligations, including prior year obligations that must get paid, such as utilities, fuel, and other such critical expenditures, GHLI. Those things still exist even when the fiscal year closes.
Right.
Yes.
And I understand that the operations still, we must move forward no matter what. That's obviously understood. So since finance is still reconciling ARPA, whatever, all the ARPA accounts that were created, I mean, how can you be sure that the ARPA funds are really there to pay for ARPA expenditures if finance is not even sure, or they haven't even reconciled yet? Like, I understand from our previous conversation that, some of the ARPA funds were commingled with other federal funds. So how can we be sure that those funds that we were using to pay for ARPA expenditures are indeed ARPA funds, and we're not taking away funds from the other federal funds that were in that same account?
And so the reconciliation work begins with pulling all expenditures that have been posted to the system, matching that against the cash that's in the bank, matching that against wire transfers that have been sent out. And so that has been the work for the past couple months. And it is not a perfect process,
Right.
because obviously there's flaws in the accounting process that has occurred in the past 2 years. And so it's a very difficult challenge. It's a significant challenge for the Department of Finance. However, we have to have something that we can work with.
Sure.
And what we can work with is what's actually been posted to the system, what we can track, what has been tracked manually, to keep an idea of what has been spent, what has been wired out, and taking all those bits of information and putting it together so that we can figure out how to move forward. And so in the fiscal response team, we've been providing the work that we've been doing in Schedule A, which is expenditures against the ARPA plan. Schedule B is the cash reconciliation. Schedule C are the expenses that have been wired out of the ARPA cash, and we're trying to reconcile those payments and book them correctly because they were not booked correctly. And so it's a huge undertaking. However, we're balancing a lot of other critical things that must get done, like the revised budget. And so at that time, in the preparation of the budget, the information we had at that time, without a full forensic audit, without a single audit being done, we can only work with what we have at that time. And so it has been provided, those copies of Schedule A, B, and C, and the updates as we moved forward since January 10 has been updated. And you can see how we've been identifying unrecorded expenditures and then booking that in the system, because we need to be transparent with where the money went. And so slowly we're making progress. We've requested federal assistance to help the Department of Finance complete the reconciliation, catch up with the audits, because that until then we'll know exactly how much, but we don't have that time. We have to start taking action immediately. So,
and I applaud all your efforts to try and get us to where we need to be, as well as, requesting for assistance from our federal partners. And I think, the purpose of all this is to just get an understanding. Initially, I really, and correct me if I'm wrong, I feel like the premise of all this was because there was no ARPA. And if that was the narrative that we were sending out to the people, and now only to hear that there is still some, ARPA balance left, I think, because I'm pretty sure the governor himself have come out and addressed to the people that there's just no ARPA. And so this conversation that we're having right now, and to our viewing public who are listening in, I'm pretty sure not just your office, but the governor himself, as well as us, will be bombarded by calls and questions from our constituents. And so I'm glad that you're clarifying that. And I think in one of our initial meetings, we did ask if there were just any ARPA funds left. And again, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe I heard that, the bank accounts were looked at and there was just no ARPA, hence, why we are here today. So correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that that's what we heard in our initial meetings with both the House and the Senate side. I'm a little confused to hear this information now, because I was always under the impression that that there's a dire need to revise this budget because there's just simply no ARPA. And I would assume that if there was no ARPA, that the general funds it's being tapped into to subsidize those expenses, the payment of those expenses. So just clarifying. I yield.
Thank you, Senator McGovney. I recognize Senator Carl.
Thank you, Vice. I would also, Madam Secretary, could you, to the best of your knowledge, give me an update of the standing balances for ARPA for Rhoda and Saipan?
was that for 602 or 603?
All sections. Whatever you have available.
I don't have the 602 prepared today, but I do have the 603. So for Rhoda, I have an expenditure of 876,000. However, the 603 allocation for Rhoda is only 746,000. So there is an over expenditure there for 603. And then for Tinian, I don't have that information. For Saipan, I have available, this is, 1 second. For Mayor of Saipan, we have about 6.7 million remaining.
And just to confirm, this is for 603.
Yes, 603 funding.
Are you aware of any transfers for 602, or have you not looked into that yet?
Transfers.
Or
The only transfer that I'm aware of is the 3 million advance.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
To Tinian.
Ayuba.
Thank you, Senator Carl. Just one last question, just to clarify, 602 is provisions of government, correct?
Those are the 602 has 4 sections
Right.
that you can utilize the funds for. That's assistance to businesses, Section A, prevention of COVID-19.
So the 3 million that was given to Tinian, that, like how you did with the legislature and other branches where, you've completely taken out ARPA, this is not something that Tinian is still allowed to use at 3.6 million, and it hasn't been restricted.
The difference in this case is that the cash was wired out to Tinian, the 3 million. Everybody else for 602 remains in Munis to be spent,
Okay.
right? And that's the difference here.
Recognize.
Just for clarification purposes, that was, when it was transferred, it was our understanding that it was for capital improvement and.
I can't answer
Well,
answer
just
to
for the
what was
record,
discussed or what was agreed upon.
That was the understanding. Oh, it's a lot smaller now.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, Secretary Narita. I know initially our conversation was just strictly on 603, but as we continue to deliberate on on this version, thank you for clarifying concerns that the members have. If there's none from anyone else in the committee at this time, we would like to, or we excuse you, Secretary, and I yield back to the chair.
Thank you, Chairman. And with that, we'll take a, thank you, Secretary, for your information
And the treasurer.
and the the treasurer's here. And with that, we'll take a short lunch break, and we'll come back at 2 o'clock. Thank you.